My name is Amanda Lewis. I'm 29 years old, and the title of this video, My Brother Demanded Money on My Birthday. The ending left. Everyone speechless. Still feels unreal coming out of my mouth. I used to think birthdays were proof you mattered, like the world paused for 5 minutes to say, "Hey, we're glad you're here." But last year, my birthday didn't feel like love at all. It felt like a bill sliding across the table with my name on it. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from, and if this is hitting close to home, please subscribe and drop a like. You're going to want to see how this unfolds. That morning started so normal, it's almost painful to remember. I woke up to pale sunlight cutting through my curtains, the smell of coffee from my neighbor's apartment drifting into the hallway, and a few sweet texts from friends who actually meant them. I stood in my kitchen in socks, holding my phone, letting myself believe the day could be simple. Then my mom called, cheerful in that tight, rehearsed way, and said, "Dinner tonight at 6. Don't be late, okay?" I didn't hear the warning yet, but my body did. My stomach tightened like it remembered something my brain was still trying to forget. Like every family gathering came with hidden rules and invisible fees. I told myself I was overthinking, that I'd show up, smile, eat cake, and go home. But even as I got dressed, I couldn't shake the strange feeling that something was waiting for me at that dinner table, and it wasn't a birthday wish. I learned early that peace in my family always had a price, and somehow I was the one expected to pay it. I was the easy one, the daughter who didn't argue, the sister who didn't push back, the person everyone pointed to when they wanted proof we were a close family. Before I go on, make sure you're subscribed and leave a like, because the way control can hide inside celebration is something you might recognize in your own life. And tell me, have you ever felt like you had to stay quiet just to keep the room calm? Growing up, my older brother Jake was the loud son everyone orbited. He got the patience, the second chances, the "he's just going through a phase" speeches that lasted for years. I got the quiet expectations. Do well in school, don't create problems, help mom when she's stressed, don't take things so personally. When Jake snapped, it was family loyalty. When I sighed too loudly, it was, "Amanda, don't make this about you." So by the time I turned 29, I didn't even realize how trained I was. I thought being loved meant being useful, and being useful meant being agreeable. That's why I said yes when my mom insisted on a birthday dinner at her house, even though I would have preferred something small with friends. I didn't know that, by the end of that night, I'd finally see what harmony really meant to them, and why Jake was so confident he could demand anything from me. I was never the favorite in my family, never the priority, just the reliable one who handled things, so everyone else could stay comfortable. If this story is hitting close to home, hit that subscribe button and drop a like. You're going to want to see what Jake does when the reliable one finally stops cooperating. I didn't even realize how insulting that role was until I started noticing how natural it felt for everyone to take from me. And the worst part is, I used to call it love. For years, Jake would sweep into my life like a storm and leave me cleaning up the branches afterward. If mom's car needed repairs, she'd say, "Amanda, can you help me figure it out?" If dad was stressed about bills, it was, "Amanda, you're good with budgets. Can you look?" Meanwhile, Jake got to be the free spirit, the one who made big promises and dramatic apologies, and everyone acted like that counted as effort. I was background music in a movie where the main character was always someone else. A few months before my 29th birthday, I'd just gotten a small raise at work, and I made the mistake of mentioning it at Sunday lunch. Jake's eyes flicked up like he'd smelled blood in the water, and he said, half joking, "Must be nice. You're basically the family's success story." Everyone laughed like it was a compliment, but my chest tightened because it wasn't praise, it was a label. And once they label you the one who can, it's only a matter of time before they ask you to prove it. On the day of the dinner, I arrived at my mom's house with a grocery store cake and a tight little smile, trying to convince myself I was being dramatic. Before I keep going, please subscribe and leave a like, because what happened in that living room started as something small and then turned into the kind of moment you replay in your head for months. The porch light was already on even though the sun hadn't fully set, and something about that glow felt less like welcome and more like inspection. I remember thinking, why does my own birthday feel like I'm walking into a meeting? Inside, everything looked perfect in a way that didn't feel warm. The table was set too neatly, the candles were already placed, and my mom kept smoothing invisible wrinkles from the tablecloth like she couldn't stand still. My dad hugged me, but it was quick, like he was distracted by a task he hadn't finished. And Jake was there early, which never happened, leaning against the counter with this calm, smug energy that made my skin prickle. We made small talk, but the conversations kept circling money in these casual little loops. My mom mentioned rising costs. My dad sighed about unexpected expenses, and Jake dropped comments like, "Yeah, things have been tense lately," as if he was the family spokesperson for stress. No one said anything directly, but the air felt loaded, like thunder before the storm. And while they sang Happy Birthday, I caught Jake watching me over the candle flames, like he was counting down to something. Jake waited until the plates were half cleared, and my mom was distracted refilling drinks to slide up beside me like we were sharing some private joke. If you're feeling this knot-in-the-stomach familiarity, please subscribe and hit like, because what he asked me next was so casual, it was cruel, and you'll want to see how it escalates. He leaned in close enough that I could smell his cologne mixed with wine and said, "Hey, Amanda, can we talk in the hallway for a second?" My heart started thudding like it already knew I wasn't being invited. I was being cornered. The hallway felt colder than the dining room, like the warmth stopped at the doorway. Jake crossed his arms, looked down at my cake box on the counter, and smirked as if my birthday was a cute little inconvenience. "So, things have been tense," he said, drawing out the words, "and Mom's been stressed. I just need you to help smooth it over." I blinked, confused, and he kept going. "A couple thousand would keep things calm, just for now. You're the only one who can do it without making a big deal." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline, but his face stayed serious, almost bored. On my birthday, he was asking for money the way someone asks to borrow a phone charger, like it was automatic, like it belonged to him already. My throat went dry and my hands went numb, and all I could think was, he didn't even say please. Then he added, quieter, sharper, "Don't make this weird, okay?" And that was the moment I realized this wasn't a request at all. It was a test. I tried to laugh it off at first, the way you do when you're hoping reality will correct itself. Before I tell you what happened next, make sure you're subscribed and leave a like, because the way Jake twisted the conversation made me see my whole childhood differently, and the payoff later is worth the wait. I said, "Jake, it's my birthday. Why are we talking about this right now?" And he didn't flinch. He just tilted his head like I was the one being unreasonable. He started using all the grown-up words people love when they're trying to guilt you. "This is what mature people do," he told me, voice low and steady. "You're responsible. You're stable. You don't want Mom spiraling, do you?" Then he softened his tone, like he was offering me a compliment instead of a leash. "You've always been the strong one, Amanda. I'm just asking you to be the bigger person, like you always are." Each sentence sounded polite, but it landed like a thumb pressing harder and harder on a bruise. When I hesitated, he stepped closer and lowered his voice even more, forcing me to lean in just to hear him. "Look," he murmured, "if you help, everything stays peaceful. If you don't, you know how Mom gets. And then everyone's night is ruined." He said it like it would be my fault, like my choices controlled the weather in that house. And right then, from the dining room, I heard my mom laugh a little too loudly, like she was trying to keep the mood afloat, while Jake watched my face, waiting to see if I'd fold. I walked back into the dining room with Jake behind me, and it felt like stepping onto a stage where everyone already knew the script except me. If you've ever had to smile through something that made you feel sick inside, please subscribe and hit like, because this is where the family rules start showing up in the air, even when nobody says them out loud. My cheeks were hot, but my hands were freezing, and I couldn't tell if I was angry or embarrassed, or both. I sat down and tried to act normal, but my body felt like it was buzzing. The room had a weird stillness, like the laughter had been turned down a few notches. My mom kept talking, but her eyes darted toward me too quickly, like she was checking if I'd behave. My dad focused hard on cutting his food, the knife scraping the plate in slow, careful strokes that suddenly felt way too loud. And Jake slid into his chair like a king returning to his throne, calm and satisfied. tapping his phone once like he'd just sent a reminder. Nobody asked what we talked about. That was the rule. In my family, silence wasn't peace. It was obedience, and everyone protected it like it was sacred. I took a sip of water to steady myself, and Jake leaned back and said, almost casually, "Amanda's always been the dependable one," like he was setting the table for something else. My mom's smile tightened. My dad's jaw flexed, and I realized the real pressure wasn't Jake's demand. It was the whole room waiting to see if I'd submit. I stared down at the crumbs on my plate and felt two versions of myself fighting in my chest. Before I go on, make sure you're subscribed and leave a like, because the next choice I made was small on the outside, but it cracked something open in my family that had been sealed for years. The old Amanda wanted to pay just to end the tension, to buy quiet the way I always had. I could practically hear my own thoughts whispering, "Just do it. It's easier. You'll feel better tomorrow." But the new Amanda, the one I'd been building slowly, without even noticing, kept flashing memories in my head like warning signs. The time I covered Mom's rent, just for 1 month, and it became expected. The time I paid for Jake's job interview suit and never saw it again. The time I canceled my weekend trip because Dad needed help with paperwork he could have done himself. Each memory had the same aftertaste. I gave, they relaxed, and nobody thanked me like it cost anything. My throat tightened as I realized what paying would really mean. It wouldn't be generosity. It would be proof. Proof that Jake could still pull me into the hallway and press the right buttons. Proof that my birthday could still be turned into a transaction. I looked up and caught Jake watching me again, just for a second, his expression almost amused, like he already knew the ending. And that's when it hit me. If I didn't choose myself tonight, I might never do it at all. I didn't stand up or raise my voice or do anything dramatic. I just put my fork down and felt this strange calm settle over me, like my body was done begging for permission to exist. If you've ever been painted as difficult the moment you protected yourself, please subscribe and hit like, because the next few minutes showed me exactly how fragile my family's peace really was. I looked at Jake and said quietly, "No, I'm not giving you money." The word sounded simple, but it landed in that house like a dropped glass. Jake blinked once, like his brain had to reread what he just heard. Then his smile came back, but it wasn't warm. It was sharp. "Amanda," he said through his teeth, still trying to keep it low. "Don't do this right now." I met his eyes and kept my voice steady. "I'm not doing anything," I said. "I'm having my birthday dinner. You're the one asking me for thousands of dollars like it's normal." For a second, it felt like time slowed down. Jake glanced toward the kitchen, toward my mom, like he was deciding whether to keep it private or make it public, whether to punish me quietly or in front of everyone. He leaned closer, his tone turning softer in that fake way that means danger. "Fine," he murmured, "if that's how you want it." And right then, I knew he was about to flip the story so fast I'd barely recognize myself in it. The shift happened so smoothly you could almost miss it, like a curtain dropping without a sound. Before I go on, make sure you're subscribed and leave a like, because what they did next wasn't loud, but it was mean in a way that sticks. And my response later is the part that finally brought justice. Jake walked back into the dining room first, wearing a calm face like nothing happened. I followed a beat later, and my mom's eyes flicked from him to me, reading the space between us like a weather report. Then the jokes started. Light, casual, dressed up as concern. Jake chuckled and said, "Amanda's been really stressed lately. Work's got her acting intense." My mom gave a little laugh that didn't reach her eyes and added, "Honey, you know we worry about you. You don't have to carry everything alone." It sounded supportive, but the message underneath was clear. If there's tension in the room, it's because Amanda can't handle herself. My dad finally looked up and said carefully, "Let's just keep tonight positive," which somehow felt like a warning aimed only at me. I sat there while they talked around me, about me, like I wasn't fully present. Like I was a problem to manage instead of a person to hear. My face stayed still, but inside I was shaking, because I realized they weren't trying to understand me. They were trying to make me small enough to control again. And that's when something in me snapped into focus. I didn't need to defend myself anymore. I needed to tell the truth. I stopped trying to prove I wasn't stressed and started noticing how easily they all agreed with Jake's version of me. If this story is bringing up your own family wounds, subscribe and hit like, because the moment you stop performing for people is the moment they show you who they really are. My mouth tasted like metal, and my pulse was loud in my ears, but my voice came out steady. I set my napkin down and said, "Can we stop talking about me like I'm not sitting here?" My mom blinked fast, like she wanted to rewind the last 10 seconds. Jake let out a quiet laugh and said, "Oh my God, Amanda, relax. We're just worried." That word, worried, hit me like an insult dressed in a sweater. I looked at him and said, "No, you're not worried. You're annoyed that I said no." The room went so still I could hear the refrigerator hum from the kitchen. Then I said the part I'd never let myself say out loud. "I've been paying in ways you don't count," I told them, my hands trembling under the table. "I've been the one who fixes things, covers gaps, shows up early, stays late, cancels plans, answers calls, calms mom down, and pretends it's all fine." My dad's eyes finally met mine, and his face changed, like he recognized something and didn't like what it meant. And I could feel it. Right as the words left my mouth, the story they used to control me was starting to crack. Jake tried to jump in, but I didn't give him room. Before I keep going, please subscribe and leave a like, because what I revealed next flipped the whole "Amanda is selfish" narrative on its head, and the silence afterward was louder than any yelling. I looked at my mom and said, "Do you remember last spring, when you told me you might lose the house?" Her face went pale, and Jake's posture stiffened like he'd been caught in headlights. I continued, slow and clear. "I gave you the money to cover it. I didn't tell anyone because you begged me not to. You said it would make Jake feel bad and start drama." My mom's lips parted, but no sound came out. Jake's eyes snapped to her, sharp and accusing, like he was trying to do the math in real time. And my dad's fork froze halfway to his mouth, like the air suddenly got too heavy to move through. That's when the power shifted, right there at the table, with candle wax cooling beside my untouched slice of cake. Jake's voice went tight. "Is that true?" he asked my mom, and for the first time all night he sounded scared. My mom didn't answer right away. She just stared at her hands like she'd misplaced something important. And in that pause, I realized the thing they never expected. My silence had been protecting them, and my truth was about to expose everything. No one reached for their glass. No one laughed. It was like the whole house took a breath and forgot how to exhale. And if this is the kind of family tension you recognize, subscribe and hit like, because what happened after the truth came out was quiet, sharp, and unforgettable. My mom finally whispered, "Amanda, I didn't want Jake to feel attacked." And even the way she said it made my stomach drop, like my help was a problem because it might make him uncomfortable. Jake stared at her like she'd betrayed him, and in a strange way, that was the first honest emotion I'd seen from him all night. My dad set his fork down with this slow, careful movement, like he was trying not to shatter something else. He looked at me and said, "How much?" And I could hear the shame in his voice, because he already knew the answer would be too much. I told him the number, and my mom flinched like it physically hurt to hear it out loud. Jake's face shifted from anger to calculation, and I watched him do what he always did, look for a way to turn himself back into the victim. Then Jake cleared his throat and said, "Well, if you had money to give away, you have money to help now," like my sacrifice was proof I owed him more. The audacity made my hands start shaking again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was clarity. My dad's eyes snapped to Jake. My mom went silent, and I realized the masks weren't just slipping, they were falling. And right as I opened my mouth to respond, my mom said something under her breath that changed the entire meaning of Jake's demand. My mom didn't look at me when she said it. She looked at the table, like the wood grain could save her. "He's in trouble again," she whispered. "And if you've ever been the family's emergency fund and emotional sponge, subscribe and hit like, because the next part explains why my birthday was targeted in the first place." Jake's jaw tightened, and my dad's face went gray, like he'd just put together a puzzle he didn't want to see finished. In that moment, it hit me. The demand wasn't random. It was planned. I asked, "What kind of trouble?" And my mom's eyes filled, but she still couldn't fully meet mine. She admitted Jake had maxed out a card, missed payments, and needed money fast, just to keep things from getting worse. The same exact phrase Jake used on me in the hallway. I felt this deep, aching grief, not because I was surprised, but because everyone had been willing to hand me the bill again, even on the one night that was supposed to be about me. And I understood something I'd never let myself understand before. Every time I paid, I wasn't buying peace. I was renting my place in the family. So I stood up, pushed my chair in gently, and said, "I love you, but I'm done funding secrets." Jake started to talk over me, but I held up my hand and kept my voice calm. "If you need help, you can ask like an adult, with honesty, and accept the answer." My dad didn't stop me, and my mom didn't argue. They just watched, stunned, because obedience is easy to mistake for love until it's gone. And as I walked to the door with my cake untouched, I knew the real cost of self-betrayal wasn't money. It was the years I'd spent disappearing to keep everyone else comfortable. Nobody yelled at first, and that silence was somehow the loudest thing in the room. If this story is hitting close to home, hit that subscribe button and drop a like. Because when you set a boundary, the people who benefited from your silence don't stay calm for long. My birthday candles kept flickering, making the shadows on the walls wobble like they couldn't decide what story to tell. I sat there with my hands folded in my lap, realizing I'd finally done the one thing my family couldn't manage me through. I told the truth. My mom's smile collapsed into something fragile, like she'd been holding it up with string. She whispered, "Amanda, why would you say that here? Not, 'Are you okay?' And not, 'Thank you,' but 'Why?' Like my honesty was the rude part." Jake leaned back with that smug little half grin and said, "See? This is what I mean. She gets dramatic." My dad stared at his plate so hard it was like the pattern on it could save him from picking a side. Then my mom's phone buzzed on the counter, and she glanced at it like it burned her. Her face went pale, and her voice dropped to almost nothing as she said, "It's a voicemail from the bank." Jake's eyes narrowed, instantly interested, like money was the only language he truly listened to. My mom swallowed and added, They're saying we're behind again." And the air changed. Because suddenly, the family tension Jake claimed he was preventing had a real shape. My chest tightened, and for one terrifying second, the old Amanda almost stood up to fix it. If you're still watching, make sure you're subscribed and leave a like, because the way this ends isn't about me paying to be loved, it's about me finally refusing to disappear. I looked at my mom and said calmly, "I'm not doing secret rescues anymore." And Jake snapped his head toward me like I'd slapped him, and he barked, "So you're just gonna let Mom lose everything?" That's when my dad finally moved. Really moved. Like he'd been asleep for years and woke up embarrassed. He put his fork down and said, quiet but firm, "Jake, stop." Jake tried to laugh it off, but my dad didn't look away. My mom started crying the real kind of crying. Messy, ashamed. And she whispered, "I asked Amanda not to tell anyone. I didn't want you two fighting." I felt my throat burn, but I said it anyway. "You didn't stop the fighting. You just made me fight myself." I stood up, not to storm out, but to reclaim the room. I told them, "I love you, but I'm done being the price you pay for peace." My mom reached for my hand and said, "I'm sorry." And this time it didn't sound like a tactic. It sounded like surrender. Jake didn't apologize. He just went quiet, watching his power drain out of the conversation. And before I left, my dad hugged me. Tight, awkward, like he was trying to make up for years in one moment, and said, "Happy birthday, Mandy. I should have protected you." I walked out holding that sentence like a gift. And for the first time, my birthday didn't feel like a transaction. It felt like I mattered.